Hi and welcome to the series Python for Beginners. Today I will be discussing Python tuples. And if you have missed my last video, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and you should be able to see tons and tons of content. I have made a video last time about Python list. Please feel free to check it out. That is a great content for you to look at. Now I'm discussing Python tuples. Now, by the end of this lecture, you should know how to use tuples, have a deeper understanding of how they are used, and I'm gonna go over also some slicing just to get you familiar with how to manipulate tuples. Um, all right, let me get it started. So what are tuples? Tuples in Python are also containers, just as lists, and they are used for two main purposes. They can use to hold records, or they can be used to for mapping purposes, right? So as when we talk about records, a tuple can hold at the same time a field name and a record. That's pretty much what it is. It can be used as a field name and a record. So people store information or data as tuples, uh, especially when you use SQL. But it can also be used for mapping purposes. I'm not going to discuss mapping purposes, and I'm not just going to discuss either um, the holding of record, but I'm just gonna get you started with on a deeper understanding of what tuples are, and I will make another video of how when you get into data analysis and data wrangling, you won't understand until I get to that part of the lecture. But stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and you will see a lot more content. Now, as far as the syntax goes, this is a tuple. There are two ways for initializing your tuple. Initializing means you want to prepare your container. That's pretty much what it is. An empty container, an empty tuple. That's what initializing is. With no, it can have an initial value, or most of the time you have no initial value. But either you have a parenthesis or you have the tuple function with parentheses too. But either way works, okay? So either way works. And if I call, for example, my tuple 1, you will see that it is showing an empty tuple, and even 2 showing an empty tuple. So either way works. That's how you call a tuple. Now, you can put, like I was mentioning earlier, you can put as many information as you want in a tuple, but you want to start, you can start with one element or even more than one element for the same entry. You can have much more element, but this is a simple tuple. You put 1, 2, 3, and 4, and when you look at it, this is how it looks like. All right. Now, a way, very um, very good example of how tuple can be used. How about lat and long? Lat and long is a pair of direction, right? You have the latitude here separated by the longitude. And one thing I wanted to mention is that a tuple, besides having parentheses, a tuple, whenever you put element inside, it can be one or more than one element. They have to be separated by commas. That is very important. They have to be separated by comma, otherwise they will not work. All right. So here I have the latitude as the first element and the longitude as the second element, and I'm calling this tuple lat long. And when I call it, you can see here that is coming up as expected. Slicing. Okay, this is a very important topic. Why? Because when you may have a pretty huge tuple, right? And you may request Python. You may ask Python to retrieve maybe 2 of them, or even be specific, retrieve the first 2 or the first or the last. Anything that you want to be able to retrieve, because you put information in the container, you want to be able to retrieve it as well. So that's where slicing comes so handy. So here's an example of a tuple where I have these values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now in Python, one thing you need to always remember is that the first value is always indexed as 0. Here you can see that your first value is 1. Now, if you want to call the first element, you don't start with 1, but you start at 0. And the last element, so you count 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The last element will be 4 and not 5. So if you remember this, you will not run into errors. So let me call the first element of my tuple, and that is 1. If I call the fourth element, I have 5. Right? Simple, very simple, if you get this type of understanding. Now, um, what if I want to retrieve a specific values? I want to retrieve maybe the first two values, right? One thing you need to remember is that this is the most important syntax of, when it comes to slicing. If you understand this, you will be fine. What this is when if I have my tuple here, I have the lower bound, the upper bound, and the step. Let me tell you what the lower bound is. The lower bound is pretty much the first element that you want in your retrieval information. Okay, the upper element is the last value that you want, and the step element is, hey, I want every every single element. Okay, when step is 1, you go by consecutive elements, right? When you go with step 2, you want every other element. All right, so let's get started. And by default, the um, the step element is always 1, and I'm going to show you in this code how this works. So what am I doing here? I am requesting Python to give me the first element, the first and the second element. Now, if I count 0, 1, 2, you would think that it should give you 3 elements, right? But actually, the way Python works is Python gives you the left hand side of your request is inclusive, but the upper bound is not inclusive. It is actually exclusive. So when you request 0 to 2, and the column here is 2, pretty much any element that goes from the start, the lower bound, to the upper bound. So 0 to 2, okay? So 0 to 2 means looking at 0, 1, and 2, okay? But you have this little small vector, right, of 1, 2, and 3. But keep in mind here that 1 will be inclusive, but 3 will be exclusive. So given that 3 will be exclusive, then you end up having 1 and 2. So that's why when you run this simple code, you end up with 1 and 2. I can increase my number element, but this time, what is it going to be? It's going to be 0, 1, and 3. I mean 0, 1, 2, and 3, but 3 exclusive. I will be left off with 1, 2, and 3. If I run this code, that's exactly what I get. All right, so let's move forward. The the other way of requesting it, as I was mentioning, when you use the step portion, one is goes by default. So here, instead of having column 1, which gives you 1 and 2, you can also remove the 1 and still have the same answer, because 1 is the default value, right? Now, when I request every other element, starting from 0 to 4, let's take a look at it. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm pretty much requesting the whole tuple. But every other element, we start from 1, okay? And then you skip the second element, you go to the third, you skip the fourth, and you go to the fifth. Now, it should normally be 1, 3, 5, correct? But see what happened here. What happened here is that you will end up having 1 and 2. Why? Because 5, let me see, let me take a look. So here, no, I'm in this 1 and 3, because 5 will be excluded, and normally you will have 1, 3, and 5, but because 5 is excluded, you will end up having 1 and 3. Okay, very simple. Now let's move forward. uh, there is a way, there is actually two ways of slicing. The first way is what I showed you, looking at slices with positive integers. But this way of slicing is usually um, very very helpful when you know the beginning of your tuple. But what if you don't know the end of your tuple? What if your tuple is so huge that you don't know what's going on at the bottom of your tuple or at the end of your tuple? Well, you don't want to start searching from the first to the 1000th element and keep going back and forth trying to find out what's going on behind. So you can call the very last element of the tuple, which is pretty simple to do. Um, and what you end up doing having is 5 if you call from the negative from using -1. Now, how about the equivalent using a positive integer would be 4, and you have the same value. Okay, so again, using negative integer is helpful when the length of your tuple is so huge that you don't know the exact number that you want to pick, or when you just want to pick the last 2 elements of your tuple, right? Now, how about requesting or retrieving the last 2 values of your tuple? There are two ways of doing this, right? So I take up to -2, so from -1 to -2. So that's what I have, right? So -1 we take is the index of 5, and -2 is the index of 4, right? So this is pretty much telling me from -2 up, from -2 and up. Now notice here that you don't have to deal with anything that is inclusive of or exclusive, right? So it's taking every element after the index -2, including -2. All right, so but what if you request from 3 and up? Here you have you start with 1 2 3, I mean 0 1 and 2 3 4. So 3 and up would be 4 and 5. So remember that column requests any element, right? So you don't need to worry about anything that is inclusive, or you when when you deal with no value at the end of the column, you don't have to worry about anything that is exclusive. This Python is going to consider all your tuple any after this index, the value of this index. Okay. All right, retrieving every other value in your tuple. Well, this code is simple. All you have to do is put 2 columns and then the step element. Every other value, that will be 1 3 and 5. Very simple. All right, tuples are immutable. What does that mean? That means that they do not change their value. You already, if you remember, we already have this lat long variable as a tuple already defined here, correct? What if I want to change maybe the first element? I don't want 32.34 56, but I want to replace it by another. Say for instance, I want to correct. There was a mistake in the tuple and I want to correct it. I want to change the value. Well, the reason why tuples are immutable is because you cannot change the values. Take a look at this. When I run this code, here's what it says: type error, tuples does not support item assignment. This means what? This means that you only use tuples when you know not only you know that your information is accurate, but also, and you also know that your information can never change, right? And this kind of guarantees the accuracy of your data, especially when you have a secure, when you're dealing with secure data. Social security numbers can be used for tuples, for example, right? IDs can be used as tuples because these can be used as dictionary keys and can be very, very helpful. I hope you like these videos. This had to do with Python using tuples. I um, I highly encourage you to give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel too for more content, and I will see you next time with the video on sets. Thank you.